Um, let's see what the God of the Bible uh, has to say about the abuse of children and the resultant agony of living the life of an adult after having been sexually, physically abused as a child. So the next area of consideration for me um, would be eating disorders and too much, too little. I'll tell you two short stories about two gorgeous looking women I met in the last 4 years, and one sooner than earlier, closer to now than the first one. First one, let me tell you that when you go to work for a new company, no matter what it is you're running, and I myself um, am a tremendously inexperienced heavy equipment operator. In that, um, God taught me how to run everything that I ever climbed into. The only thing I don't enjoy running is what is called a wiggle wagon, but everything up to the 465 ton 797 cat haul trucks and the like. I just climbed in those things and just ran them. But always you have a trainer with you, and that trainer um, imparts their experience, knowledge uh, of how to run that piece of equipment, whatever it is, and and also um, establishes for themselves whether you truly are qualified to run thus and so piece of equipment. And so um, I, I had the privilege and the honor of riding with a lady, and she drove the first day, and usually they'll let you drive halfway through the second day, and the third day you drive all day, and then you're accepted or rejected. Simple. And this lady and I, we just had a time, eh? And we talked about everything. And if I am talking about everything, I'll talk about the God of the Bible. And right up front, the first thing I do is I tell them the story of my two sons, both having received miracles from the God of the Bible. And that's my way of introduction. And this particular lady, we just bonded for 2 or 3 hours on the first day, and I mean, she is a good-looking woman and a pleasant face. I mean, she kind of wore her heart on her sleeve, the same as I do, and so we built a bit of a relationship with each other in the cab of that truck as we pounded down the haul roads in the mine. And long about afternoon, I said, "Would you allow me to ask you a personal question?" I said, "You don't have to answer." She said, "Jim, you ask anything you want." As I said, we had built a relationship because she and I both wore our hearts on our sleeves. That's the saying. And I said, "You sure?" She said, "Yes, anything." And so we were beating her down the haul road in the mine, and I said, "Woman, uh, I notice you carry a few extra pounds." She just looked at me. Well, she had said I could ask. I'd said you don't have to answer. She said yes. I said, "May I ask, is that a defensive mechanism that you have employed subconsciously and or consciously that protects you from having your heart hurt again?" She just looked at me. She said yes. I said, "Were you sexually abused as a child?" She said yes. I said, "And you use these extra pounds to keep people at arm's length?" She said yes. I said, "In order to protect yourself from having your heart broken again?" She said yes. My eldest son, uh, I, during COVID, had to move out of the place I was in. The company that I worked for moved me out to a camp in order to protect myself from COVID. Oh, jeez. And I phoned my son and I said, I don't like being around people. He said, "I know that." I said, "But something I didn't realize is I miss people." He thought that was real funny. He said, he said, "Dad, you have been alone all your life, even in a crowded room." And I thought, yes, I have. Yes, it was my choice. Yes, it resulted in loneliness, but that loneliness was less risky for me than getting to know people and letting them get to know me, and then experiencing the hurt, the betrayal of one whom you thought you knew. And what's on that Scott's Miracle, 18, broken neck, crushed skull, in a coma. Next day, God healed him 100%. My son's now, I think he's turning 50 in December. and youngest son. Both my boys are my friends. I don't get to see the youngest one as much because he's just as much of a loner as I am. But we never hang up from talking to either of my sons or my four grandsons without saying, God bless, God bless you, and I love you. And they answer that back. Next little short story. I was at a family get together, a large party, and I saw uh, this skinny lady, uh, just a blessed knockout, um, sitting in the last row of the little tiny chapel, and uh, they had me sit across the aisle on one remaining seat there. I don't know, perhaps they looked at me and thought I might faint or something. I, I don't look 40 anymore. And I studied that skinny girl, and she had her little son uh, with her. And I just so admired um, the interaction between that son and the mother. And later that night, there was a serious get together to do with the same family endeavor, and the lady was there, and I introduced, and her son wasn't. Her son had gone home with the babysitter, and I I talked to the lady, and we shared a smoke together, and sitting out from the large uh, dance area where we had had a marvelous supper and all that sort of stuff. And I we built a bit of a relationship there. I must tell you, when I'm in the company of a lady who is just um, someone, shall we say, gorgeous, I forget how old I am and how young most of those women are. And we had fun, and in some small way, we built a bit of a relationship, a friendship, a respect. And I spoke to the lady, and I said, you would be well advised to gain about 20, 25 pounds. He said, I know. And I said, you'd feel healthier, you'd feel better. Kind of indicated you knew that too. And I said, most eating disorders, whether eating too much or not enough, are directly related to childhood abuse in one form or another. I said, I asked, have you experienced that childhood sexual abuse? She looked at me, and we hadn't built as good a relationship perhaps as we should have, but for me to ask such a question. But she looked at me nonetheless, and she said, my dad was hooked on crystal meth for the last 10 years that she had lived at home with him. She didn't have to go into any details. I didn't need to know anything more than that. I verified respectfully. I hope she wasn't upset with me, and I prayerfully proceeded to try to tell her that the only way to reconcile the past is to realize as a child you're not responsible for anything, nothing. An abuser will say, see what you have made me do. And that is a lie from the pit of hell. And 12-year-old baby girl does not make an adult rape them. But abusers, like their father, perhaps fathers on earth too, but their spiritual father, who is the father of all lies, who is Satan, would have people be dissuaded from looking for solace and peace from the God of the Bible. And Satan manifests himself through demons, evil spirits, family curses, generational sins of the father unto the third and the fourth generation. New Testament kind of killed that off a bit. But if you have been raised as an abused child, you come to the place in life where that's all you expect from life. That's all. The abuse is all that you come to expect from those around you. And to me, that is such a simple explanation that Satan robs, steals, and destroys your joy, your peace, your hope, your worth, self-worth, by denigrating a baby child into being used just as an object. And those in this world who follow Satan and abuse children are evil. Totally fulfilling their satanic mission of destruction and hatred and contempt for the God of the Bible. For even Jesus said to his disciples, suffer the little children to come unto me. God's problem from our standpoint is this: God declares quite openly that he, God, is love. But God had to give mankind a choice. God had to give you a choice. God had to give your abuser a choice. And that choice is to humble yourself and ask God to forgive you, or in the place of the abuser who so sell out their soul to Satan that Satan manifests himself, whether through demons, evil spirits, whatever, and rots death and destruction on baby children. But that's the difference between the God of the Bible in the person of Jesus Christ saying, suffer, allow the little children to come unto me. And Satan's demonstrated evil in trying to kill off everything, everyone who has chosen to turn their hearts to the God of the Bible. So this is your quandary. This is your opportunity to change the fabric of the direction of your life, in that God has declared that he loves you. And many people around the world would say, well, how the hell does God show his love to me when I have been abused by another who's sold their heart to Satan? Good question. But God made Satan in order to give you a choice, lest you would pick on God as being the only option. And if you didn't have a choice, how fair was that as an option? So God created Satan and let Satan run with his agenda. Satan's agenda was declared by himself when he said, I will be God. Well, the created being saying that he would be equal to the creator. Not happening. But what do you do with the pain and the agony of having your body parts ripped asunder by being raped by some fatherless child who hates God and holds you, a baby, in contempt because they are so narcissistic in their evil intent that they make the same statement that Satan made, I will be my own God. Well, see where that gets you, abuser. Okay, because God won't be mocked. People say, okay, well, what about all these baby children who are raped, plundered, and killed, beaten, killed? God of the Bible comes back with, this life is but a training ground for eternity. The question is posed, how long will you allow that abuse to continue to affect your life as an adult? It's up to you. If you humble yourself, none of the abuse that you as a child experienced is your fault when it's at the hands of an evil adult or facsimile. Sure as hell, no man does not abuse children, nor women, nor those who are weaker than they. That's not God's way. But you have to decide for yourself how long will that abuser's actions continue to influence your own life? And it's in your hands. God has made a way for you to be at peace with Him by humbling yourself and praying such a prayer as this: God, forgive me. I recognize that Jesus Christ is your Son, that He, Jesus, suffered, bled, and died on the cross, tortured, whipped, beaten, denigrated, murdered, buried for 3 days, and He, Jesus, raised Himself from the dead and now sits at the right hand of God the Father. So you carry scar tissues from your childhood. I do. I believe everyone does. I bet over half the children who become adults, over half of them were sexually abused. It used to be done in quiet. Nowadays, it's broadcast on some computer sickness, evil. If you are anorexic, if you have chosen to demean yourself through not eating enough and or eating too much as a systematic approach to keeping people away from you, you need to ask God to forgive you of your sin, and not the sin of a child being abused, but the sin that besets all of us, and ask God to heal you from the inside out, and God will. And if you don't eat enough, I encourage you to eat a little more. And if you eat a tad bit too much, I'd encourage you to eat a little less. Trust the giving of your heart to the God of the Bible. Don't give your heart just to anyone. Get to know that anyone. Get to know their values, their belief systems. Get to understand what makes them tick. It's it's not the best looking body that's gonna do you any good. I've been married and divorced 3 times. All 3 women met the same basic criteria: good rear ends and that that sort of thing. It's no way to pick a wife or a spouse in any sense of the word. But live and learn. God says that He loves you. He says that He knows you. He says that you are fighting a battle that will be hard won, but that He, God, will help you through, that you be more than conqueror, but that you become a child of the living God, the God of the Bible, God the Father, God the Son, got the Holy Ghost. Thank you so much. Uh, God and I am sure we'll get a few more of these done today. Don't uh, don't fear. Fear is debilitating. Fear strikes deep into your core being where God made a place in your core, in your heart, soul, spirit that only He can fill. Get to know Him. Okay. God bless. You all take care.